Right. Well, welcome everyone to the Plant-Powered Metro New York Cooking Hour. I feel like the BBC, it is now BBC Cooking Hour, Plant-Powered Metro New York Cooking Hour. It's actually an hour and a half or so, but welcome to those of you who are new to this, who've just joined us in the Jumpstart. A particular welcome. This class has been organized partly for you. Carole is going to be preparing some very basics, things that you can keep in the fridge, things that are easy, things that could be potentially a cheese substitute for those of you who are making your way off of cheese and dairy. So it's going to be a very, very full and exciting demo. So there's going to be a lot that she's going to try to get in this next hour and a half or so. So my name is Wendy Sachs, and I am on the board of Plant-Powered Metro New York. Plant-Powered Metro New York is an organization that empowers people to find better health and overcome chronic diseases through a whole food, plant-based nutrition. And we believe in food as medicine up to a certain point, mostly as prevention, but it can also be useful when you're have a chronic disease to help reverse it. Together with a wide network of grassroots leaders and educators, we raise awareness about the dramatic health benefits of a whole food plant-based diet and lifestyle. We build supportive communities that empower people to make lifestyle changes and organize and lead projects that spark changes to food policy, practice, and culture. We're thrilled to present this regular cooking class with our culinary educator, Chef Carole. And tonight, as usual, we're going to allow Carole, for the most part, to demonstrate her recipes. There'll be natural breaks between each dish. And if you can please put your questions in the chat, I'll be able to relay them to her quickly and efficiently, either between dishes, or we will allow about 15 minutes at the end, 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer your questions. So let's see, I think that's about it in terms of announcements. Keep yourselves on mute because we're recording, and anything that you want to bring up in the chat, please do so. So, Chef Carole, my dear friend, what's on the menu for today?
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Thanks everybody for coming, and welcome to my kitchen. And I'm happy to have all of you here. And today's course is really about flavors. I mean, that's what we build it as, about having flavors and ways to add flavors to your food. But as far as I'm concerned, that's every class, right? Every class, all food is about flavors. So there's really nothing too special about that to say, because we always talk about different ways when we're not using salt or sugar or oil as a way of adding on flavors and a way of replacing things. So the very first thing that we're going to do, we're doing three things today. We're going to make cornbread, because I think it's something that everybody likes, and it's something that you can eat with soup, or you can eat it for breakfast, or you can eat it anytime. And it's a fast thing, and I want to just show you how easy it is to make. And we're going to preheat. I have the oven preheating at 375. And then after our cornbread, we're going to make marinated tofu and with vegetables, because it's something people ask me a lot about, like, what do you do with tofu? And then the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to make queso. And I know a couple of you in the Wednesday night Jumpstart had asked me about how do we replace our cheese? And this will be one way of making cheese as a substitute for what you're used to. So let's just get started so we don't waste any time. And as you know, many of you know that I'm a baker, and it's something I love doing. And right now in this bowl, we have 1 cup of cornmeal, okay? Cornmeal is not polenta, it is not corn flour, it is cornmeal, okay? And we are going to also, we have 1 cup of soy milk here, but you can use any plant-based milk that you want, okay? And I have measured out 1.5 tablespoons of flax seed. And this essentially is going to make our egg, okay? Even though it's normal to put a tablespoon of flaxseed with 3 tablespoons of water, ultimately this is going to make a thickener for our cornbread. So I'm just going to get that mixed up and let sit. So that's the flaxseed and egg. and not the egg, the milk, which happens to be soy, but you could use cashew or almond milk or oat milk, whichever is your preference. Speaking of oats, I am using oat flour. This is ground. I just took my regular oats and ground it in a blender. You could also replace this with spelt flour. Many of you might be used to a recipe with all-purpose flour and cornmeal for your cornbread, but try to use flour that actually has some nutrients in it. All-purpose flour has no nutrients in it whatsoever. So I encourage you to use oat or spelt when you can. So this is now equal parts of a cup and a cup of cornmeal, a cup of oats, and then we have 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay, and that's going in here like that. Okay, and then we also need a sweetener in here, and the recipe actually calls for a 1/2 cup of date paste. Okay, and since I've been making this recipe, I've actually cut back a little bit on the sweetener, and we don't want to get lost in talking about date paste. But what is date paste? It's a replacement for processed sugar. It's a replacement for maple syrup. If you need or want to use maple syrup, that's an okay thing to use in this cornbread. But on hand, I always have a jar of date paste. And what does that mean? I've taken about a cup of dates and I've covered them in hot water. I've let them soak, and then I puree those dates. I don't use all the water that is covered. I kind of just use some of the water, and I've given you a recipe for that. But I always have this in my refrigerator, so anytime I need anything sweet, even if I'm making a savory dish, if I'm making Indian curry, or I'm making some other kind of anything that needs a sweetener. Sometimes spaghetti sauce needs a sweetener, and you just put a little bit of date paste and you've got your sweetener. So let me just portion this out right now, and I'm going to just use the 1/3 of a cup because I think it's plenty. And again, your recipe will say a 1/2. But this is the date paste right here, okay? And I am going to get that in with our liquids, okay? So that's our sweetener. And then we also usually in cornbread, you have some kind of fat. And fat sometimes is either butter or a kind of oil. And instead of that, a good substitution for fat is actually applesauce. And I have, the recipe calls for a 1/2 cup. And if we were to measure this, it'd be just slightly under a 1/2 cup. But I buy these unsweetened applesauces that come in these little plastic containers. I think they're little snack containers. And they're perfect for me because I bake a lot. And it just means I'm not having to open a jar and, you know, have an open jar. It's a perfect amount for baking. I always seem to need a 1/2 cup. So I'm just putting all of that. That is going to be my wet ingredients. Okay, and we're going to just get this out of here, and I'm just going to move this here so to get this out. Okay, and the very other thing that you want to do as soon as you've added your baking soda and your baking powder is you just want to get it mixed, okay? Because no, you never want, sometimes there are little, like tiny little baking soda, little chunks, like little bits, and I can see them in here. And the worst thing you want for anybody to do is to bite into a taste of baking powder, baking soda. So that's all mixed like that. Okay, very simple. This is going to get mixed. These are what are our wet ingredients. Again, we've got our milk, our applesauce, our dates, and our milk, dates, flaxseed. And that is nice and thick. And I'm just going to pour all that in there like that. Okay, it's always good to, I like getting all of this scraped out. You never want to get any, if you don't scrape the container, you're going to leave stuff behind. So that goes in the sink. This gets mixed up, and you don't ever want to mix any quick breads that you're making. You want to just learn to do it quickly, actually. Mix quickly. You're just getting your wet and your dry ingredients together. And this is it. Again, no over mixing. That's it. Done. I look at the bottom. I scrape the bottom to make sure that there's no nothing that's sitting. The flour is not sitting. Want to get some of this off. I just want to, we have our oven preheated, and I want to show you the options for putting this into a pan. Okay, I really encourage you, if you're baking a lot, to get some of these silicone pans. Okay, this is an 8x8-inch square pan. If for some reason you don't have any silicone pans, then I would use your regular 8x8. This happens to be a metal pan. And what I've done is I've cut some parchment paper and I put it so that we don't have to oil or butter. We don't have to spray or do anything. This cornbread will come out as long as it's lined, okay? So I cut a piece of paper that's the width of both directions, and then we would put this right into here and it would just stay just like that. The other thing that you could do if you wanted, many of you have watched because we've made a lot of muffins during these last months, is use a mini muffin or a regular muffin and use the same batter to make muffins. But today we're just going to make the regular cornbread. Takes 25 minutes to bake. I'm going to get this in here just like this, and it's just going to get spread out. As if you wanted to get fancy, you could put a little bit of frozen corn inside. That would work, definitely. I'd like giving it a little hit here. Okay, get this all off. And that is it on our cornbread. It is going in our preheated oven of 375. And it's going to bake for 25 minutes. But I always set the timer for 20. I always set it for a shorter time. That way I actually peek at it to make sure that nothing's, going wrong in the oven, that it's, everything's cooking. So we're going to move on now to our marinated tofu, but I thought I can take any questions if you have anything about what we just did.
Yes, Carole, there's a question. What would you substitute the applesauce with? Do you have a substitute for applesauce?
The applesauce substitute is already substituting oil, but I guess you could try to use a banana. You could try to use a banana, although it's going to be sweet. The banana is going to probably be sweeter than the applesauce. So you'd have to maybe make some adjustments with your date paste. But I think the banana would work.
That sounds great. I did see in Kathy Fisher's recipe, she does not use applesauce and just uses date and milk. So that may be a possibility if somebody doesn't want applesauce, dates and milk. I know you're familiar with that recipe as well. I think that's the only, and can you, if someone only had steel cut oats, quick oats or steel cut oats, would either of those be okay to blend?
You could, I guess, you're gonna have, I would not do the steel cut oats. If you had groats, that's a bigger grain, I would use the groats, and the quick oats would be okay. But ultimately, quick oats are not so nice, and just learn to buy the old-fashioned oats is my recommendation, honestly.
I would agree. And how long does date paste keep in the fridge?
I would say I go through it very quickly, so I've never had it spoil on me, but I would give it a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I didn't show you this, but I already put it away, but I always, here, let me just get it out and show you. I always date everything. Every single thing that goes in the refrigerator, if it is made, gets a date, okay? So this was just made the other day, and it will go away very quickly.
Great. Okay, we're ready to move on. I know we're on a tight time schedule.
Well, we're only on a tight time schedule because I try to cram in so much for everybody. That's the only reason that we're on a tight time schedule. So we are going to marinate tofu, okay? And I know that people that had come to the Wednesday night class saw tofu scramble, and we talked about marinating and pressing tofu, because that's the first thing when it comes out of the package. And I showed many of you, you can buy, the package comes as a 1 pound package. This is extra firm tofu. I buy it in these little 2 packs because I'm a single person and I often just make half and then leave the other half in the refrigerator. So just depends, but I always buy this kind of little 2-pack. And if you have a press, now I will tell you, I lived almost 30 some years in cooking in the kitchen and never had one of these presses. And I thank Lynn Diamond for introducing me to what is called a tofu express. And it literally is like a torture chamber for the tofu. And it's like this, and we showed it the other night, and it looks just like this, and it's a gizmo that basically clamps down and presses the tofu. If you didn't have one, which I didn't have for many, many years, is you would wrap some tofu in a bunch of paper towels, okay? And then I would put it on a plate. And I would actually, how I would do it, I just want to show you. I wrap it in paper towels, and I would put the plate upside down so that the liquid would drain, and I would put it on this part of the plate, not this part of the plate. And then I would put a weight on it. And I used to put a cast iron pan and a couple cans, and that would be just a balancing act. And that would sit for like 30 minutes. And eventually all the liquid would leave, the moisture would leave the tofu. But I want to tell you that having had this machine, and I'm not one for gizmos because I have a small kitchen, I love this thing so much because look how much water. There is over a half a cup of water in here, and it's something I would have never, ever had gotten all that out over time. So I'm getting rid of that. And this actually acts as a marinade, a container to actually marinate the tofu as well. But I never seem to want to marinate anything in it because I like just keeping it so clean. So I take this out, okay, and we have nice pressed tofu. And I love it so much. And what we're going to do is we're going to get in this particular, just a flat, you want something flat, okay? And we're going to measure, I've measured already a half a cup of orange juice, okay? And this is not, it doesn't have to be exact. In fact, Wendy can confess, I've made this for her many, many times. And the crazy thing is that I almost never measure anything. But for you all, I have actually taken the time to measure and really figure it out. So this happens to be a half a cup of orange juice. So it is, and I'll show you also what I wanted to show you when you squeeze this orange. I have a half an orange here, and I just want to show you this, okay? And this is when you're squeezing your orange, okay? And we're just gonna put this in here. I've made this recipe also with lime juice. It's also very, very delicious. And some of that pulp actually could go in there too, okay? Again, I always tell you that recipes are not like, you know, written in cement. You have to learn to be a little bit flexible and learn to improvise. And when you've gotten this, please later, you don't have to do it this very moment, but I just want to show you that after you squeeze your orange, don't just throw this part away. Definitely eat out this fiber here, okay? This is still really, the yummy part of the orange is still here. We've just drained the juice. So I always like go right to this and eat this, and then I throw it out. So just, you want to eat everything. And then we want to get a quarter cup of, so a half a cup of juice, and then you want a quarter cup of soy sauce, okay? I'm just gonna, and this soy that I have here, actually, this is actually tamari. Tamari is actually a gluten-free soy sauce. So a lot of people ask about that, like, but whatever you buy, whether it's soy or tamari, just make sure that it's low in sodium, okay? Because it's got a lot of salt. So this soy is going in here, okay? And then we're going to put garlic and ginger, okay? Two things. And we need to have a tablespoon of ginger, which I've already ground, okay? And this is a tablespoon of ginger. And then we need 2 cloves of garlic, and I have a lot of garlic here. So I know roughly that each garlic clove is approximately a teaspoon. So I'm putting 2 teaspoons of garlic, okay? And this all can be put away and saved for tomorrow, another day, when I'm making Indian food or whatever food I'm making next. This all can just go right into the refrigerator with no problem. And I did want to just show you that the garlic, not the garlic, but the ginger looks like this, okay? And what you have to do is you have to get it peeled before you use it. So you can actually use a spoon to peel this off, this skin off. And if we weren't on a cutting board with any garlic on it, I would tell you that you save this any of you just recently saw that I made a nice hot toddy, you save this ginger skin and you make a nice, with boiling water, and you make a nice ginger tea. Okay, but this is basically, you want to get that garlic peeled and then slice it and then chop it. So just wanted you to see that. And then the last thing that goes into this sauce, into this marinade, okay, and you can see how nice that looks, right? You want to get a little bit of spice in there. So if you're one of those people that don't like a lot of spice, I would recommend you use the chili flakes. Okay, that's a really good way to add a little spice, and they look like that. And I'm just going to put like a 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, but and most people have chili flakes in their cabinet, but there are always other alternatives to making something hot. And you have maybe seen that I've used the habanero sauce. This is just a hot sauce. And if you were to replace the chili flakes, I'd put a dot or two of this sauce in there. And then another flavoring that I like a lot, which can come in a jar, but it also comes in a tube like this, is harissa. And harissa is a Moroccan, a lot of people use it in Moroccan cooking. And you would just need a little bit, just again, maybe not even a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe an 1/8 of a teaspoon. But again, you'll learn how to make this marinade and what you like, and how spicy you like it, okay? And then what we do is we're going to cut the tofu. That's it. And we're going to take this block, and I usually try to do it all at once. So I've cut it in half, and then I'm cutting it in half again. So I end up with basically four, right? 4. And I'm going to keep them all in a block like that. And then I'm going to cut it in half, cut it again in half, and again in half. So those make a bunch of nice 1-inch cubes that will just go right. Oops, you're dropping things. Things happen. Things do drop. And when they drop, it's okay to rinse them off and get it into the marinade. Okay, and then there's another way that I like to slice tofu. Sometimes I don't cube it, and I just make nice slices. So I'll just show you that alternative way, which is to make little squares like that. And then I cut it into pieces that look like rectangles, basically, like that. Okay, so 2 ways of cutting: the cubed way, right? The cubed way, and then the square way. And all of this is going to be in the marinade. Now you might ask, how long does it have to marinate? Well, the longer the better, right? Now I often make this, and in 10-15 minutes it's already in the oven because I can't wait. But you can make this the night before or the day before. This could sit in the refrigerator for a day or two, and you could take it and cook the tofu as you want to cook it, every day. Or I try not to do that. I would probably try to cook all the tofu at once and then take it out and reheat it on the days that you want to eat it. But basically, this is the marinated tofu, okay? And that I usually cover it. It can sit on your counter for the half an hour that it's going to marinate. But again, if you're going to leave it for tomorrow or later on in the day, I would definitely cover it, and then I would put it in the fridge. And when it's time to start cooking it, I would get a sheet pan out, and I would layer it with a silpat mat, or I would put parchment paper. Okay, parchment paper is this paper that I just showed you for the cornbread. And I would lay the parchment paper or the silpat mat on the baking sheet, and then I would lay the marinade. I would keep the marinade in the dish, but I would take all the tofu out. Okay, so how does that look? I just want to show you that I baked some earlier, and it looks like this. Okay, so, and these are just cubes, and I just made half. Okay, and I'm gonna just taste one, and it's so yummy. I mean, sometimes I eat all this tofu and it never gets to the actual dish because it's just such a yummy thing. And if you make a bunch of it, you could definitely store it in the refrigerator and eat it on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Just plan ahead, because we've talked a lot about batch cooking, right? So this is something you could make a lot of, and you don't have to, make just a little bit of it. Okay, so we're gonna use this. And what I did was I left the marinade behind, okay, from when I marinated. And this is gonna become our sauce when we cook the vegetables, okay? So I just wanna show you that. I'm gonna move this over here. Gonna leave this here. I got a little bit of a messy counter here and I don't like that. So, and I'm also realizing that I'm stepping on a piece of tofu, which not gonna just get off the floor. Not good to have a dirty kitchen. And I want to get this counter, whoa. I just want to keep the counter clean. I always am a believer that if you have it all clean in front of you, that you're functioning like cleanly in your head. Okay, so we have this marinade, we have this tofu, and now we're gonna figure out, let's make a vegetable dish, right, for dinner. So I always encourage us to get the pan hot, and I'm just using a saute pan here. Okay.
Carole, can I interrupt you with a bunch of quick questions on the tofu?
Sure.
How long do you bake it for?
We bake it. The recipe says it's about 15. I put it on broil. There are two ways to bake it. You can put it at a 425-degree oven, but I like broiling it because then it gets these little brown edges. So I would say probably 10 minutes on one side, and then I flip it over, and then another like 10 to 12 minutes.
Great.
And it really is up to you on how crispy you want it, okay? I really like it. Sometimes I let it almost get, not burnt, but I love when it has brown bits.
Excellent. And will this freeze once you make it and it's marinated and all of this, it's ready to go? Can you put it in the freezer?
I think you can actually. I've never done that, but I don't see why not, because Lori the other day told me that she freezes tofu, and I don't see why not. Actually, it's just a marinade, and I think it would be fine actually. If you're gonna marinate, you're gonna freeze it before you cook it, is what the question is, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I think it would be okay actually. I have something I've never done, but I don't see why not.
Great. And what's the brand of the hot sauce, and is it low sodium?
You know what? Let's just check on its sodium here. This sodium here is this is 6%, so it's not too low sodium, but it says serving size is 1 teaspoon. This particular brand is Arizona Peppers Organic Harvest Foods. I'll just show it to you. Mm-hmm. And the thing about when I use condiments, you know, I think we talked about this the other night too, me using cornichons that are in a brine where you can wash the cornichons if you're concerned about the salt. We're only using like a 1/4 teaspoon of this, right? It's so little bit that I guess I don't get obsessively worried about how much salt or oil or anything that's in this, because it is, we're using so little bit, it's almost doesn't matter. It's negligible.
Great. And quickly, there's just a few more. How long does it take to press the tofu in the tofu press?
I think it takes 5 minutes, and not even. I mean, it happens so fast. The longer you let it sit, the more water, but it eventually stops, right? So I would say the longest it needs is 15 minutes, but you get results in 5 minutes.
Okay, and I answered this in the chat, but in your opinion, what's wrong with using the tofu unpressed?
Well, there's just a lot of liquid that comes with it, right? So you're just basically adding water. It's like if you took salad and you washed it and then you didn't dry it, right? Then you're adding water to your dressing, like you're adding sogginess, right? So the beauty of when you take the moisture out of the tofu is it then allows you to put flavors right back in. Right. It's like think of the tofu like a sponge.
Great. And very quickly to Aisha, we do not have a list of basic kitchen tools in the app, but it's a great idea. So we may create one. And in the meantime, if you want to go to Chef AJ's Amazon store, she cooks like this and she's got a whole list of tools. And I believe Carole on her website, theveggievanguard.com, may have some resources and suggestions as well. So,
and I do have tools. I don't have pots and or pans because it gets into a really lengthy thing. So if anyone wants to write to me and say, what kind of pan or what kind of this or what kind of this, I'm happy to help you. Okay, but pots and pans are really a personal taste. Okay, so anything else, Wendy? Was there anything else?
There is a question about your chocolate mousse with aquafaba, but if it's okay, I'll wait for that at the end. And is that on your website?
Chocolate mousse with aquafaba is on my website, actually. It is on the website.
Website, thevegievanguard.com, to answer that question.
But, you know, again, people write to me all the time after these classes, and you'll see I write promptly back because I'm so happy to be engaged with people that are actually trying new things.
Okay, there's a couple other comments, but I think we can move on. And
are you sure? Because we're going to look at the cornbread anyway at this point. I just want to look at the cornbread so I can take another comment or question.
It's more to do with Michael Greger's says to use miso because the soy in miso balances the bad of the salt, and you can use a little miso. I've done it on this, but the smidgen of soy sauce that Carole uses, well, I don't know. Do you want to comment on that, Carole? Miso versus soy sauce?
You know what? Sorry, Wendy. You know what? I was in the oven. I was in the oven looking at the cornbread, and I didn't hear the whole question of how it related to Michael Greger, and I don't want to get caught up. So the question about soy sauce is?
The question is not really a question. It's just the topic of the salt. And Karen, you're right. Michael Greger does indicate it's okay to say to use miso. In this particular recipe, Carole, correct me if I'm wrong, you're only using a smidgen of the soy sauce, and it's a taste issue, but you could, I suppose, use miso. So Carole, what do you think about
I guess it's, you know, soy is, if you're not using the soy sauce, then just forget about it. I wouldn't even add the miso. Honestly, I don't think you need the miso. Honestly, I would just marinate it in the orange juice and the garlic. Right. and the hot sauce. I would not even think about adding miso to it. It's not the place to add miso.
Right. And quick question, is the cornbread your own recipe?
Yes, cornbread is my own recipe, but I will tell you that cornbread is worldwide, okay? Cornbread is worldwide. You could interview anybody in the South, in the North, I don't care where they are, and they will tell you you need certain things. You need a cup and a cup. You need a cup of cornbread and a cup of cornmeal and a cup of flour. And then you need soda and you need powder. And then, yes, usually you put salt. And then usually you need a fat, and then you need a sweetener. That's it. So it is my recipe, which we've seen numerous times here in this demos, and I've added pumpkin to the same thing, and I've done a lot of variations, and you could do variations, but it's a universal recipe. So it's mine, but it's all of ours.
Great. We can move on. I know you still have a lot ahead.
Yeah, I do have a lot ahead, and I'm trying to keep us timed. The cornbread, I looked at it. Remember, we said we'd set the timer for 20 minutes, and I looked at it, and it really does need at least another 5 minutes. So I have the timer set for the 5 minutes. In the meantime, just I have this pan hot. And I just am going, it's already very hot, and we're going to start cooking the vegetables, okay? And the vegetables that we're going to make for this Buddha plate, I'm just calling it a big, this is how I eat when I'm really just reaching into the refrigerator, don't have a lot of time, and just like, okay, got to get some vegetables. I have a sauce, I have some tofu, let's get it done. Okay, so I actually roasted, and I did this on purpose. And normally I would cook the onions in the pan right this very minute. But because we're talking about flavors, I wanted to show you that in the oven, roasting vegetables really intensifies the flavors of all vegetables. And when you roast vegetables, you put them on a sheet pan, again with parchment or silpat mat. That allows you for easy cleanup. And you could put mushrooms, broccoli, various things. If you're doing, I probably wouldn't mix all the vegetables up at one time, but one of my favorite things to do is to put a bunch of onions, a lot of onions, and just put them in the oven at 400 degrees, and you end up with things that look like this, okay? This was a whole red onion, and then I had, believe it or not, I had bought all these little pearl onions at Thanksgiving time, and I still had quite a number of them, and they're not even spoiled in the refrigerator. And I roasted these today. So this is going to become part of our these onions are already cooked. They already have a flavor, but I just wanted to show you what it's like. Now, if you were to eat these onions right this very minute, I'm telling you, it is like eating candy, okay? Candy. It's one of my favorite things when I'm eating Mexican food, actually, is to serve grilled onions like this. They're not grilled, but they're actually roasted in the oven. So we have all these onions, and they have their strong flavor already. So we don't necessarily need to be cutting them. As you know, I have the pan is really hot, and I can feel it because it's on my back. And I'm not going to have a big light underneath it. But we've talked about always heating a pan before you start cooking. And I know it's hot because I'm putting my hand here, and it's a wow, it's a hot. How would I know that? I could always test with water. Did you hear that? Did you see that steam? Did you hear that sizzle? That means that pan is ready to go. There is no wasting any time on it. So we're going to saute some mushrooms. Okay, so I'm going to get these mushrooms, and I have a bunch of mushrooms. And we normally put the onions in first, but because my onions are already cooked, and again, we're just going to cut these mushrooms up. And I have one of these beautiful trumpet mushrooms, and I've been trying to experiment with lots of various mushrooms and just for the flavor of them. And I'm just slicing this. Okay, you can see how they look. Okay, they're sliced thin like that. And then I'm just going to stack them on top. And we're water sauteing. I have no broth today, actually. So we have to get some water in this pan so these start cooking. And you can hear it's really, really hot. Okay, those are going to start sauteing just right this very minute. We want those mushrooms getting cooked. Okay, and what else are we going to add to this? I like a lot of mushrooms. You can never have enough mushrooms. So we're just cutting those. Those are all going to cook down anyway. Okay, and then we also have red peppers. We have these onions that we're going to use. Eventually, they're going to go in. I thought I would add a carrot. We can be fancy with the carrot. We can do whatever we want cutting it. I'm going to cut it in half. And then it's nice to cut it on a severe, like a big angle, you know, and you're going to hold your knife. You're going to always hold your hands in. You're never going to leave your fingers out. Okay, and your hands are going to move, and you're going to cook that carrot. And these carrots actually are going to probably take as long as the mushrooms, so they're okay to go in there right now. Okay, again, this is fast. This feels like we're slowing down only because I'm showing you about cutting, and we want to get a spatula. Okay, and we're stirring this around, and we want to have a little bit more water. Okay, and again, that is cooking. I'm going to bring the heat up because the temperature's gone down in the pan. We're also going to have broccoli, and then I have a lot of greens here, okay? And I just thought I would show you the different greens. There's spinach, that is right here. Today, I cooked yellow beets, okay? And when I buy the beets, I try not to buy them just the loose beets. I actually try to buy them when the tops are still on, because if you're able to buy them with the tops on, you're actually getting a 2-for-1 in one vegetable. You're paying one price and getting two things, okay? And these are the most delicious. And if you learn to like beet greens, you know, they're more delicious than actually spinach. So I encourage you to try them, okay? And you can use the whole stem. So I've washed these very well. I have the stems, okay? And those stems are going to take a little longer. I'm just going to get the stems in there now because they're going to take longer. And then we also going to I want some red peppers for color. This is all about color and what you have in your refrigerator, honestly. And then there's bok choy, which I always, always love. So we're going to add that too. And how you would cut this bok choy, this is a baby bok choy, and you would cut the end off, okay? That's what you would do, cut off this end. And then I usually cut it in half, okay, in half. And then I take it to the sink. I actually already washed this thoroughly today, but I would actually wash it at the sink now because there is sometimes actually some dirt inside. There isn't any dirt, but I just am showing you. And I would just give it a good rinse. Again, you would want to dry it. We don't need a lot of, we already have some greens. And the part that is the green leaves are going to go over here. Okay, we're going to leave the greens to the end, and then I'm going to take this part and I'm going to cut it too on the bias, right? That's kind of like going to be the crunchy part, and we all like the crunchy part. And I realized I didn't do the sesame seeds. Well, you'll have to get this, we'll have to get the sesame seeds out for the decoration part. We'll do that also. And they are on the second shelf, far away from me, and the cabinet in the bottom. Where the yeast is, that's where I find having someone get things for me, I have to give directions. So I just want to show you what this is looking like, okay? Doesn't need a lot of cooking, okay? You never want to overcook the vegetables, right? But you want to cook those mushrooms, and the mushrooms are getting cooked, they're getting brown, okay? And I'm going to start putting in these onions, okay? The onions are going to go in there now too. Again, they're already cooked, and we're just adding those. And it's my way of using them up, okay? And we could use some red onion too. Why not? Again, this will get eaten. This onion will get eaten without, even if it's not in the main dish, it's going to get eaten for certain. Okay, let's get that out of here. And then we want to get the broccoli in here now. Okay. And how do I know when to add the broccoli? Well, the broccoli, you want to just turn it so that you're going to basically steam it. Everything else is getting sauteed. If you had a lid and you could put the lid on now, but it doesn't really need the lid. And I just want the broccoli to get cooked a little bit, not a lot. And I remember I have this sauce, right, from when I cooked the tofu. And what I've done over here on the side is I've made what is called a slurry, okay? And I don't always do this, so I really want to preface that often I just take this marinade and I put it on top, okay? And I don't do anything. But if you're one of those people, and I wanted to be able to show you this, that you actually want a sauce, you actually want something that's thick and gooey, you need to make a slurry. And a slurry is usually made with cornstarch, arrowroot, tapioca, any kind of a potato starch you could do. And it's based, I gave you the proportion. I made a lot here, actually. This is a tablespoon of cornstarch to 1/4 cup of water. That's kind of the normal. But I actually gave you a smaller amount in the recipe. And you would pour this in with the marinade, okay? And I want to get this stirring because this is almost ready. And it's kind of starting to stick a little bit. And I don't want it to stick. And I want the broccoli to get done. Now the broccoli is getting done. How can I tell? Because it's getting to be bright green. And I like it al dente. And you cook it for as long as some people like it really soft and mushy. I'm not one of those people. I don't like overcooked anything. In fact, the carrots are probably getting way done now. I like everything to have a crunch, which this definitely has a crunch. We're going to keep this here close by, and we're going to get the pan, and I'm going to get this cornbread out and I'm going to lower this while we're doing two things at once. And I'm going to look at the cornbread, and it looks beautiful actually. And I'm going to just put it here because I want to feel it, and it is definitely done. So I'm going to put this over here. We're going to turn the oven off, close the oven door, and we are going to add this tofu. First, we're going to add these greens, okay? Add as many greens because as we know, all the greens like to cook down. And I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to add more greens because we have to, I like to have a lot, and it always cooks down just when you think you don't have enough. So these greens could go away because we're trying to clear off the space, and this goes away. And we're going to get the tofu in there now, too. Okay, this, gonna put this light little back up. Looks delicious. I'm gonna see if the broccoli is nice and done. Well, it's perfect. The broccoli is perfect. That's delish. Okay, this sauce is now going in. Okay. Again, reminding you, you don't have to make a thickener. This tofu is also going in. Okay, all of this is going to the side, and we're going to plate this food up, and it's going to be delicious. Now, if you're one of the people, I'm very concerned about presentation all the time. I always like to get it all looking beautiful, but I decided to serve all this kind of family style for you today. So it's not going to be one of those dishes where you have the rice and then a section of broccoli and a section of red peppers and a section of mushrooms. I actually want it all to be mixed together. Okay, and this is all done. And the greens are flying around here. We've got two kinds of greens. Remember, we've got the beet greens, and we've got the spinach, and we've got the bok choy. Okay, and then this is going to go here. We have rice. I cooked ahead rice, brown rice. I'm going to show you other choices. Let's get this off and get some of these greens back in the pot and not use that spoon. And we could put the rice on the side. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to bury the rice. We're going to, again, make this family style so that we can bring the whole thing right to and this is the brown rice, okay? And then I'm going to put all of this in here. This looks delicious. I just want to show you what it looks like in the pan. Okay, it smells good, I think. Okay, and this is really beautiful. And all of this goes in here. And honestly, I would do all this even for myself, and I would eat it, and then tomorrow I would just reheat it. So again, so that you're not having to make dinner every single night or even your lunch. Maybe you're going to make this for dinner tonight, and then the rest of it's going to be for your lunch tomorrow that you're going to ultimately reheat. And then we talk about other flavors, cilantro, and we talked about herbs the other day, and I'll just bring some of these out here. But we talked about dill on Wednesday night. We talked about mint and parsley, and of course cilantro. All these are washed and cleaned, and they're in their jars. And we can put some cilantro here on the top and just decorate that just like that. And then thank you for the sesame seeds. That makes a huge difference. I really like getting this decorated with the sesame seeds. Okay, so that is our big family style marinated tofu and brown rice and vegetables. Okay, so that's gonna sit here. And now for the last portion of our demonstration, we're going to make the queso, because I know a number of you have really wanted to figure out, how do I make that cheese that's going to replace the bad cheese, you know? So let me answer any questions, Wendy, and then we'll quickly get on to the next thing.
Yep, I have one. Can you repeat the measurements for the cornstarch and water with the marinade? It seems, I didn't look at the recipes, but it seems the measurements might have been omitted for the cornstarch and...
The cornstarch, the rest, I definitely put them inside the directions, and I made it smaller, but the normal proportion is 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to 1/4 cup of water, okay? But in the recipe, because I didn't think that I have quite a bit left. I have quite a bit of slurry left. Okay, you didn't need it all. I actually told people, I think, to put 1 teaspoon and like 2 tablespoons of water. But it is in the recipe.
Okay, great.
And what else?
I'm gonna just answer one of these questions. Hold on one second, I'm typing. You know, Judy, you're asking a lot of very particular questions, like how many servings and like this. the serving size depends on how hungry you are. If you're hungry, eat the whole thing. If you're not hungry, you might have 2 or 3 or 4 servings. So some of this is just a little bit common sense and up to you. There's not a measurement.
And I purposely, just so you know, unless it's so obvious that I'm going to make a square cornbread and we're going to cut it into 12 pieces, that I tell you that it's actually, you're going to get 12 pieces, because the amount of salad I eat at lunch is probably for 4 people, right? So it's just like what Wendy's saying. It really depends on how hungry you are and how much volume you're eating at one given time.
Right. Yep. And then, Carole, can you hold up the jars you have of your herbs? There's a question, what trick to keeping your dill and cilantro and other herbs?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this the other night, but I know we have a lot of people that are here in my normal Sunday class that weren't in the Jumpstart on Wednesday night. And ultimately, all herbs, there are hard herbs and soft herbs, okay? So they're not all created equal, okay? This particular, I actually have room in my refrigerator this particular week. So I actually have little jars where I have the dill sitting in water, I have the cilantro sitting in water, I have the mint sitting in water, and I have the parsley sitting in water. Hardly do I ever have that kind of space in my fridge, because it's just too tight. And so usually I actually have I have containers. I'll show you. I'll actually show you the containers. I have these containers that are actually labeled parsley and cilantro, and I put a paper towel in and I just wash them, and then I put them and wrap them in a paper towel, and then I put the lid on, because this takes up less room in my fridge than these jars. When I have fresh basil in the summertime, I definitely put it in water and I put a plastic bag over it, because it's very soft and fragile, and the plastic bag helps contain it and keep it fresh.
Super quick, last question. If you're using arrowroot, is it the same amount as the cornstarch when you mix it with the water?
Yes, correct.
Okay, great. And Judy, yes, you do need to cover your herbs to keep them fresh. Not if they're in the jar. The way Carole has them in the jar, it's like a little garden. If you're putting them in the tubs that she recommends, I think she recommends covering them.
Yes, I do. And I do that often. I just, right now, my refrigerator just happens to be not full, not full. But when it is full, there is no room for standing up jars.
Great.
And maybe people could put it on, like how you do it, Wendy, in your large refrigerator, where you put it on the door. You actually have some nice jars and you put them on the door. But I don't have that kind of space.
I don't cover mine, Judy. To answer your question, Carole, you don't cover them when they're in the jars.
I don't, except for the basil, I definitely cover.
Okay.
So let's move on. Otherwise, we're not going to have time to do the queso. We're not going to have time.
We're moving on.
Okay, so the queso is not my recipe. It's actually a forks over knife recipe, and I just wanted, it's a lovely recipe, and I use it whether you want to replace cheese and you want to put it on a quesadilla, you're a kind of person that wants to put cheese on top of broccoli, you're a person that wants to put cheese on top of a baked potato. There's various ways that you can serve this cheese, okay? So we're gonna get all the ingredients. I'm going to actually make half a recipe, because I don't need and want. Oh, and one other thing before we go on, because I wanted to show you this. We made brown rice to serve with this, and please explore quinoa, brown rice, red rice, black rice. There are so many things other than white rice, okay? So the darker, the better, the more vitamins there are. And then I wanted just to show you that there's such thing as sweet potato vermicelli, which are noodles that I often use. There is buckwheat soba, which I often will serve with the tofu and some vegetables. And then there are brown rice Chinese noodles. All very, very simple and easy to cook in boiling water. So now we're back to the queso. So the queso, I'm going to make half a recipe, and I have to actually get it here in front of me so that I don't forget any ingredients. So we're going to start with oats, okay? These are my normal breakfast oats. Again, they're old-fashioned oats, not quick oats, not steel-cut oats. They're just a half a cup of oats. And that's gonna go into a blender, okay? Now, if you don't have a Vitamix, okay, please don't fret. Okay, I went 30 years in my kitchen and didn't have a Vitamix till probably 2 years ago, and I love it now that I have it. It's a great tool. But if you have a conventional blender, this would work. If you have a NutriBullet, you could make it in NutriBullet. If you have a Cuisinart, you could also make it in a Cuisinart. Okay, so you have a lot of options here. So the oats are going in, and in the meantime, we're boiling 2 cups of water. So I have that on the back burner here, and that almost is going to come to a boil in a minute. The other things that we're going to have is we need 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast, but we're making half. So I have 2 tablespoons measured out here. And this happens to be a measuring spoon for 2 tablespoons. So the nutritional yeast is going in there. And then we were just talking about cornstarch, and we need to have 1 tablespoon for, again, a half of the recipe. And that's going to go in there like that. And we are going to blend that just like we did for the corn bread. We want to get the dry ingredients just mixed. So I'm just going to mix that really fast. And everything's all ground. If you want to see what it looks like, I mean, it's just basically ground. It's nothing too surprising. Just ground oats and nutritional yeast. Okay, and that's that. And now the thing that we really want that's going to make it beautiful and red is the red peppers. And there are 2 ways that you could have red peppers. You can buy a jar of roasted red peppers that are in a brine. And of course, you want to, if you do that, you're most likely going to want to drain the brine, rinse the peppers because they've been in some salt, and that will be the easiest way to get your red peppers, okay, your roasted red peppers. I know for certain Trader Joe's makes a good jar full of roasted red peppers, and almost every store in the canned aisle with the peppers will have roasted peppers. But I almost always have a jar of roasted red peppers in the refrigerator because I eat them a lot for various things, and I cook them myself and I broil them or I roast them, either one. And I just put them again on a sheet pan with the parchment paper, and you can either cook them for 425 degrees, or I broiled them today because it was faster. The skins get all black. You take them out of the oven. You then put them in a bowl. You take the red peppers out and you put them in a bowl and you cover them so that you're steaming them. Some people actually put the red peppers in a brown bag, okay? But you're basically steaming them, and then in about 15 minutes after you've cooked them, you're able to peel off their skins, okay? And those skins, those blackened skins get thrown away, and then you end up with these beautiful, beautiful roasted red peppers that look like that, okay? I almost, like I said, always have a jar full of these. And I want just to show you that we're going to need 3.5 ounces of, and when you make them yourself, you need to actually figure out how much is 3.5 ounces. Now, of course, if you bought a jar, it's going to tell you, you bought a 7-inch jar, you know, so then you know it's 7 inches. So I'm going to take my little OXO scale that I have here, which I actually can't live without. And it goes on, okay, it goes on. And right now I have it set for pounds. It has kilograms too. And because I'm gonna not put the peppers right directly on the scale, I'm going to put a plate, and then I'm going to make it so the plate says that it's 2.5 pounds, but as soon as I hit 0, now we're at 0 level, okay? So I just wanted you to understand how that works when you're actually, like if we were measuring flour, I know you might not be able to see these numbers necessarily. Maybe if I actually put on the light, oops, nope, it doesn't matter. But I'm just gonna show you that you wanna always be at 0 when you're using the container because you don't wanna be weighing the container. So we need 3.5 ounces. Okay, so I'm just gonna plop these down, and I don't know approximately how much we are. Oh, we're at 2 1/4. Oh, we need almost the whole jar. Holy moly. Oh, there we are. This is 3 5/8. I mean, we could be fussy here. Oh, we're going to just leave that. And this goes right back into the refrigerator. Our water is boiling. I'm going to turn that off. Okay. And we need to, so this is going to go in. I'm going to move this scale right here. I'm going to move this. These are really big because I never really cut them up. So I'm just going to give a chop to them. Okay. So that they're smaller. Okay. And this is going to go right back on this plate. Okay. And these are going to go in here like this. This is going to make a beautiful sauce. And I'm going to rinse my hands. The other things that need to go in is apple cider. And we need to have it says 1 tablespoon of apple cider or lemon juice. And I use this apple cider. It's a Bragg's apple cider, just showing that to you in case you want. But I have used a 1/2 tablespoon, okay? And that's going in here. The other thing that we need to have in this recipe is we need to have a little bit of onion, okay? And I didn't pre-cut that at all. And it says that we need to have, it says 2 tablespoons of finely chopped onion. Well, I'm not gonna really bother to chop it fine because it's gonna go in the blender. Okay, so I'm just gonna estimate that that's enough onion, just because I can see it. Okay, and that's gonna go in there. Okay, and then we only need we need 1 to 2 teaspoons of hot pepper. Okay, and again, I'm going to use this, but this is very, 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 very hot, and we're having a recipe, so I'm just going to use like a 1/2 teaspoon, and we can always, whenever you're using hot sauce, right, you're never going to put all of it in. You're going to taste it. You're going to put less. Okay, that's my tip to you, is that you're going to put less than you think you need, because you can always add more. Okay, and let's get rid of this onion. And then we have the boiling water, and this is where you have to be very, very careful. Okay, so I'm basically going to pour this water into here. Okay, something I'm not ever loving doing this when you have hot water. You have to be very, very careful. So I'm going to put this on low so it doesn't, and we're going to start slow. Looks like tomato soup from here, to tell you the truth. And let's give this a taste, okay? Now, the reason we don't have to cook this sauce on we don't have to cook the sauce on the stove is because we've just used the boiling water, and the boiling water actually has helped gel that cornstarch. Okay, so I'm just gonna give this a taste just to see what it tastes like at this very moment. It's very, very good. I just realized that I made an error, and this happens, okay? This happens, so I'm not embarrassed. It happens in front of all of you. Is that I see, why has it got so much liquid? Why does it have so much liquid, and why isn't it really super thick? The reason it's not super thick is because I added the full 2 cups, and we only needed 1 cup. We only needed 1 cup, okay? So how are we gonna fix this, right? There has to be a way to fix things. I'm always like, we're gonna just get a quick pan on the stove, and I'm going to try to fix this, because the way that you would really fix this once you've realized that you've made a mistake is you've already put in all the liquid. So you could go backwards now and add another 1/2 cup of oats. You could go backwards and add another little bit of nutritional yeast, more cornstarch. But as you see, I don't have enough red peppers to actually make this work, right? So I'm going to try to see if we can just, actually, I'm not even going to do it in this pan. I'm going to do it in this. I think it'll be better. And we're just going to see if we can just reduce it a little bit. And by thickening it up, that we make this, but otherwise it would be perfectly thick. And I just want you to see, I'm not perfect. And that's what happens when you actually half recipes. And it's something that I kind of sailed through by just cutting back, by looking. But often when I do a half recipe, I actually sit down and I put a Post-it note right next to my recipe, and I write down every single half of this, half of this, half of this. And that way I'm not reading what's in front of me. I'm actually reading the Post-it note. So we're going to see if we can save this by making it a little bit thicker by reducing it. In the meantime, I'm going to cut the cornbread and show you that. And let's just get that. And let me just see if I can move this. I don't want it to go too far, this. And this pan is just going to be a little bit small. But let's just show you what this cools, right? This is not quite the exact size, but it will work. Just turning that over, okay? See how clean that is? Isn't that amazing? Okay, amazing. And then let's stir this because we don't want to burn the cheese, right? Ah, you see, I'm rescuing it already. It is already happening. I am feeling happier about this. You see, now it is thicker. It is actually going to be just fine. It is because I'm basically kind of reducing it a little bit on a high flame. But let's just flip this over. Just going to give this a flip like that. And then we'll get a better knife than that. And I always cut this into 12 pieces, okay? And we want to get this, turn that off because, and you know what? I have to say I'm happy that I made a mistake for all of you because it's important to show that no one's perfect, right? When you're in the kitchen, accidents happen, things happen, and you have to adapt. And we're just adapting now. So I think it's okay. So here is a nice plate. And we're just going to put this here. And I love this cornbread. In the morning with avocado, I actually slice it open and I put smashed avocado on it. But this is your cornbread to be eaten with soup, eaten at breakfast, eaten as a snack. Okay? Still really hot, to tell you the truth. But that is your cornbread, okay? So I'm just showing you that. And let's just get this hot pepper out of the area. Okay, and the last thing that I really wanted to just show you, because I'm just, I don't know, obsessed with trying to show you so many things in a given hour, is how would you eat this cheese? Like, what would you do? So in here, in this little pocket, earlier today I made a bunch of tortillas. Okay, you could buy flour tortillas if you want. I particularly like corn. These are yellow corn, these are blue corn. And I don't know, we'll just take, if you were to make the quesadilla, right? So you can always, quesadillas are usually closed. It could be open-faced, right? And let's just bring this pan again, another pan. And I have some beans, okay? I always have beans. And I'm gonna just get these into a bowl really quickly here. These are just a kind of black bean. They look like brown beans. They're actually a very particular kind of chocolate bean, but don't get into where these come from, these special beans. But I always have beans like this. And I'm gonna get a fork, okay? And I'm gonna smash them, okay? And I don't know, normally I would put a little bit of spinach probably in this too, because I like to add the spinach and but let's just see if we can do all that. We're going to put this on gonna put the beans on the tortilla like that. Just gonna smash that, okay? Then we're going to add a little bit of our cheese, which I've just rescued, right? I've rescued this cheese. It's thick, it's not totally thick, but I promise you that when you add the right amount of water, it actually works. Okay, then I'm gonna put this in here to warm up. I'm gonna cut a little bit of spinach, because you could put mushrooms, whatever it is that you want. But spinach, mushrooms, beans. Okay, I'm just, again, trying to get those greens in there. Okay, and you could eat this as an open-faced sandwich, of course, but most quesadillas are closed. Okay, so I'm gonna put a lid on it. Okay, I'm gonna let that cook for 1 minute. And we can start taking questions, but I'm going to start actually showing you how to, let's get all of this off of the counter, get the beans out of here, get this out. We have so many, looks delicious. And let's get the spatula. I lost the spatula, but it is right here, amazingly. Let's get that rinsed off. And then I'm gonna flip this quesadilla because I want it brown on both sides. Let's hope that everything doesn't fall out of it. Okay, we're gonna do it carefully, just like you would any other sandwich. Okay, so a bean or two just fell out. Okay, but that's okay. We do need the little cutting board before we serve here, we can use this cutting board. Just have to reach for it. And that's gonna get cut and then served. And that would make a great breakfast. It would make a great snack. And we are pretty much done with all of our things. We're just gonna serve this. I like it to be a little bit brown. But let's just see, it's happening. I'm gonna flip it one more time. Yeah, see the cheese is now starting to ooze out, which is always very exciting because that's what kind of turns people on to eating cheese, is the ooziness of things. Okay, and this is gonna come out of the pan, okay? And of course I would normally let that cool for like a minute, but we're gonna try to tackle it right now. Could be dangerous tackling it when it's so very hot, but we're going to cut it in just triangles. Probably not, these are small, right? And then I'm just going to take this and put it, and I probably would serve them so that they're all like that. And I would make a bunch of them before I bring them to the table to serve. We would make a bunch. And who cares if a few beans are behind? I'm just going to let that go. And so we are done here, Wendy. We have everything. We have the little quesadillas with the cheese that I've rescued, We have the cornbread, and we have the very yummy, it doesn't look so yummy when it's just sitting here, but when it's all mixed up, the marinated tofu with vegetables and rice.
Excellent. Well, I do have a bunch of questions for you, Carole. So these are in no particular order, but is there a substitute for nutritional yeast for the queso recipe?
No, not really, because the cheese, that is the only thing that I know that actually is a cheesy flavor. I don't have a replacement, no.
Okay. And what brand of nutritional yeast are you using? And do you want to talk about the fortified versus unfortified?
I did that a little bit the other night, but this is a brand, it's the most gigantic bag you've ever seen, so please don't try to buy a bag this size. I bought this on Amazon, and it's called Sari Foods. This is non-fortified, and the difference between non-fortified is that it means that all the vitamins that are in here have not been removed. so it's better to have the non-fortified. This is a very good brand. As you know, I've also promoted Dr. Furman's Nutritional Yeast. It's a very clean yeast, and you can, Bragg's makes a decent one that you can buy at a regular, that's probably the most common, but this is definitely found on Amazon.
Great. And for the recipe with the cornstarch, this was asked before, can you use arrowroot? But are there any other substitutes, whether arrowroot or cornstarch, to thicken things?
Yes, and I wrote that on the recipes. When you all read the recipes, there's cornstarch, there's potato starch, there's arrowroot, there's rice flour. Rice flour is another thickener, and tapioca is another thickener.
Great. Do you ever thicken with chia seeds, or is that completely different?
Well, that is a total, for oatmeal, I put chia seeds in my oatmeal, or chia seeds to make pudding, but it's not something I particularly would use to make a slurry. That's not where my mind goes. A slurry again is a water and a starch to use as a thickener.
Beautiful. When you store your red peppers, are you storing them in water or are you storing them in vinegar?
You know, when those are roasted, when I roast them, they make their own beautiful, yummy, like roasted juice that just comes naturally off of them. So they actually, I save that juice and it just goes right into the jar. You can see, I don't know, you can, it's hard to see, but there's liquid. There is liquid in there. And that's just the moisture and the natural juices that come from the roasting. And I love those juices. I never let them go away to the wayside.
Excellent. Another quick question. For the queso recipe, can you eliminate the cornstarch altogether?
You have to thicken it. You're gonna have to thicken it. So if you're not gonna thicken it with the cornstarch, I don't know. Maybe maybe flaxseed, possibly. Maybe I would put some white beans as a thickener, honestly. That would be another idea. I haven't done it, but it's just an idea. Cannellini white beans would probably work as the same kind of thickener.
Okay, great. So yeah, cannellini white beans is often used as a thickening substitute.
And I'm trying not to steer you towards nuts, okay? I mean, nuts are also a thickener. Cashew nuts are also a thickener and make a cream sauce, right? But for those of you that are, you know, we try to limit our intake of nuts. And we also, you know, if you're working on your weight, you want to try to stay away from eating so many nuts.
Right. And it seems that people did not get a recipe for the vegetable stir fry. Do you have a separate sheet with the recipe?
No, because there's the marinated recipe with the tofu, and then it just says pick your favorite vegetables and then use the marinade, and it says to use the cornstarch if you wanted to thickener. It's all in the directions, but there is no recipe. These are the vegetables that I happen to have. Sometimes I just eat the tofu with bok choy, and that's the end of it. We just happen to have a variety, and I didn't even use the beets here, but I just had so much variety in my fridge today that I was able to show you 2 kinds of mushrooms, broccoli, several kinds of greens. I mean, we have a garden practically in here.
Great. So for those who are asking, I've just put Carole's website in the chat, and also want to invite all of you to please come to the Plant Powered Metro New York tomorrow. It's a special event for Martin Luther King Day. It's at noon to 1:30, and we have the very distinguished Dr. Barnard speaking to us tomorrow about diabetes, and also Dr. Batiste, who's a cardiologist based in California. So I put that in the chat at some point. I'll see if I can put it in again. And Carole, I may have more questions that are flying in. Give me 1 second. Let me just put this.
We have finished on time, so I hope if anyone wants to stick around. I'm actually trying to eat. I'm starving.
Well, you have many people who want to come for dinner. I just thought I should mention all that.
Oh, I love that.
Coming to you. Great class. Thank you very much. Sherry says step number 8 in the tofu recipe gives instructions for the slurry. So those of you who've been asking about that, yes,
I'm glad somebody's reading. Honestly, I start to doubt myself that I've written up a recipe so that I cover all bases. So thank you so much for pointing that out.
Yes, there's a number of questions, and I'm also going to direct you all to the recipes. And for Carole Klowansky, there's no the substitutions about arrowroot and cornstarch and potato starch or tapioca we just covered here in the chat that may not be there.
And that's also in the recipe. I actually write all those words in the parentheses that you can do any of those things.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so we have finished very close to on time. The food looks absolutely delicious. Carole, thank you so much. Many comments coming in. And oh, Carol Hart, if you're still on the call, did you want to put a question? I saw your hand up, but I couldn't answer with your hand up. So if you've got a question, Carol Hart, please put it in the chat. And in the meantime, thank you all for coming, particularly to our new jump starters. Thank you for coming. Carol and I often do these cooking classes, and Plant Powered Metro New York also adds programs a lot. So please continue to check our website, which is plantpoweredmetronewyork.org.
And Wendy, I would just like to say that our next class is Sunday, February 7th, and it's all going to be about baking. We're really dedicating ourselves to Valentine's. And so it's not something I do a lot. It is my love my love is baking. And we're going to, I believe, make little cheesecakes and chocolate brownies and other things, little things that we can all do in 1 hour's time. But I hope all of you come to the next class, which is February 7th.
As you might imagine, Valentine's Day with Carol is fantastic. So do come. I've been through several of them, cooking classes with for Valentine's Day, and so highly recommend it. Let me just see if I have anything else. Yep, to reach Carol, you can email her at Carol with an E, Carol at theveggievanguard.com. Her website is theveggievanguard.com. There are many recipes on there. Someone in the chat asked about the aquafaba chocolate mousse. You will find that there. Will says sweet potato peanut butter brownies rock. Okay, I think that's about it. So please come back. Please check the website for ongoing programs. And again, tomorrow, noon to 1:30 is a real treat. I highly recommend you all come. And we are also, I just should mention, in fundraising season. I know that's usually big at the end of the year, but anyone who wants to make a donation, please, you'll find a button on the website if you are so moved to do so. But in the meantime, we're continuing to offer most of these classes for free. So Carol, any last words?
No, I just thank everybody for coming. I wish all of you on the jump starters good luck. You've just been in it. You will have completed soon 14 days. And I think once you're over that, I cheer you on. I tell you, Dr. Barnard, when Wendy mentions him tomorrow, is the person that really kind of pushed me into whole food. He didn't do it purposefully, but he made a light bulb go off in my head, and literally did convince me that this was the way to be eating, and that it was the healthiest thing. And I love always saying my thing to him was, hey, this really works. I have so much energy now. I'm on the moon. I feel like I'm on the moon. And he said, we need you here on Earth. We need you here. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, everybody behind the scenes, and my regular people that come. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and one more note, because on the jump starters, I know several of you are transitioning off of cheese, or you've got families that are you're cooking cheese and you yourself are refraining. Dr. Barnard has a book specifically on cheese, and it is called Cheese. And you can find it online, and I really recommend all his books. But the one on cheese, for those who are going through withdrawal, is really, really excellent. And Carol has just, of course, shown us a beautiful substitute. So thank you, everyone. Love having you here.
Bye.
See you next time.